Shabbat Shalom. This week's Parsha, Parshat Vayishlach, resumes the story of the conflict between the two brothers, Yaakov and Esav. When we last saw Esav, he was out to kill Yaakov. Yaakov fled north to his cousin, and after spending many years working for his deceitful cousin, Lavan, he has finally accumulated a large family and considerable wealth, and he's on his way back to his homeland in Israel. And he hears that Esav is out to meet him with 400 men. And so Yaakov makes preparations for this very tense and eventful meeting. And then, when spending the night alone, he is attacked by a mysterious person. The Torah calls him an ish, a person, a man. But the Chazal tell us, and the story seems to imply that he's an angel. And we don't know why this man attacked Yaakov or what the whole thing was about, but Yaakov wrestles with him all night long. And then when the sun rises, the man or the angel asks to be released. Yaakov asks for and receives a blessing. And then, just as the man is about, or the angel is about to leave, Yaakov asks him for his name. What's your name? And the man says, Lama zitishal shmi. Why do you want to know my name? And poof, disappears. Now, that very same ending is found in an entirely different story in the book of Judges, with the parents of Samson of Shimshon, when they're met by an angel who comes and tells them that they're going to give birth to a child and he should be raised as a Nazir, not to drink wine or cut his hair. And just as he's about to leave, Manoach, Samson's father, asks the angel, here the Bible tells us that it is an angel. He asks him, what is your name? And the angel replies exactly as the angel did to Yaakov, Lama zetishal shmi. So what is this? Why would these people, Yaakov and Manoach, be so interested in knowing the angel's name? And even more to the point, why is it that in both cases the angel refuses to give a name? He says, why do you ask for my name? And poof, disappears. Why is it so important that the angel be anonymous, to not have a name? Now, the Ramban, Nachmanides, gives an extremely interesting and I think very valuable explanation in his commentary on the Torah in our parsha. According to him, the angel, when he says, or when he asks, why do you want to know my name? It means to say that there's you gain nothing at all by knowing my name, because I have no power. All power, all authority rests in God. So if you call upon me, I won't answer you. I can't rescue you. I can't help you. That's what the Ramban says. And it seems clear that he has in mind the idea that people, or some people, want to pray to angels to help them. And this is something that is absolutely unacceptable in Judaism. God and God alone is to be the one addressed in our prayers. God and God alone is the one who can help us and rescue us. Now, this point was emphasized also by the great Maimonides in his 13 so-called articles of faith, 13 principles, which he thinks every Jew should take upon himself to convince himself that they're true. One of them is that God and God alone is the object of our worship, and there are no intermediaries. We don't pray to someone that someone or that something should intervene on our behalf with God. And in fact, there is a story in the Jerusalem Talmud which makes this point very nicely, as the Talmud often does, by comparing between God and earthly rulers, earthly kings. The story tells us that, if you want to see an earthly ruler, an earthly king, and it's really no different, even more complicated and difficult these days with, so-called democratically elected rulers, even a mayor or a governor, not to mention the president. You can't just knock on the door and walk in and say, listen here, Mr. President, I have a problem. I want you to help me. No, you've got to go through a battery of assistants and secretaries and aides and someone who handles their calendar, and chances of your getting in to see the person directly aren't that great. And sometimes the best you can do is to ask one of these people, who are the assistants or aides or secretaries or whatever, can you please pass this message on? But not so with God. We don't have to ask. There's no intermediaries standing between us and God, and we have to beg, please send make this request on my behalf. We pray directly to God. Nonetheless, there are more than one prayers that are addressed to angels that have made their way into the Jewish prayer book, and some have aroused some controversy because of this. And the most controversial one that has aroused the greatest amount of discussion is the prayer that begins Machnise Rachamim, those angels who pass on our requests for mercy, according, whom we ask to please, pass on my request for mercy and relief. Something that's said as part of the slichot that we say in Elul, or before Rosh Hashanah and between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and it's also in the liturgy, especially of Yom Kippur. And there's been considerable controversy over the ages. Some authorities have tried to find some justification for the prayer, even though they know that it's difficult to have a prayer addressed to angels. But some have said outright that the prayer should not be said. It's inadmissible by the principles of Jewish belief. And some have simply decided not to take a stand. They know that they knew that there really should not be a prayer addressed to angels, but they knew on the other hand that the prayer is so popular that trying to oppose it would not be effective. They say that the Khatam Sofer, one of the great Jewish authorities of the last few centuries, would take a long time saying the segment in the Slichot that comes before Machnise Rachamim. Before Machnise Rachamim, we have Tachnun, which is like the Tachnun we say in the daily prayers, which people, fall on their hands like this and say it, quietly with your face hidden. And he would take a very, very long time and not raise his head until he heard that the congregation had finished Machnise Rachamim, so that on the one hand he wouldn't have to say it, on the other hand he wouldn't be opposing them. So I think these days it's even harder to try and oppose a prayer like that, not just because people simply have no interest or patience with theology and don't see what the connection between religion and belief or non-belief in angels intermediaries. It's not part of our current cultural discourse and so on and so forth. But even more so because Machnise Rachamim now has this beautiful melody. Machnise Rachamim. It's really a beautiful, moving melody. I hear it, on YouTube, and it moves me. And that's one of the highlights for people, who come, especially on the high holidays when the synagogue is filled with people who many of whom that's the only time they come, and they come more for the communal singing, which does, in all sincerity, does really, hit some strings of their heart and move them. So to say, well, we can't say this because this prayer has some, is worded in a way that is unacceptable to us. So there's not really would make no point now to say, strike this from the prayer book. What I personally would do is simply, hum along without saying the words, at least the opening words, the most problematic words, where we address the prayer to these angels whose purpose supposedly is to pass on our request of mercy, and then sing the rest, which just tells us about Melech Ram V'Nisa, how God is a mighty and a sublime majesty. So that's my message for this week's parsha. Thanks a lot, and Shabbat Shalom.